Smear campaigns can be one of the most destructive things that can happen to a person if not handled correctly. These campaigns can occur on a small scale, meaning like within a family unit or a small office setting with maybe 3 to 4 to 5 people. You really only need 4 people, right, to do it. You need the offender, the target, the flying monkey, and then the recipient of the information, the audience. This can be extremely debilitating to one's mental health, but also to their reputation, to their career, to their life. It's either because they've removed themselves from a relationship with someone who was toxic, and that person who removed themselves from the relationship likely has information about that person or that person's associates that would be incredibly damaging to them. It could also be more vindictive, and they just seek to harm this other person because their ego has been wounded in some way. We see this a lot with narcissistic abuse. Another time we might see a smear campaign is usually when someone is standing up for themselves in a workplace environment, or it could be in any group environment. Oftentimes the smear campaign would have begun far before everyone knew about it. So what does it look like when it happens? A smear campaign, firstly, you have to have a target, right? So these offenders identify a target because, like I said, they could be leaving a relationship. They have information that would be damaging to another person, or they could harm the reputation of that person, an entity, an institution, corporation, something like this, okay? So they'll identify a target. The next thing that the offender will do is try to collect information about this target. If they can't find damaging information by befriending or trying to coerce or buy off that target's closest friends, family members, things like this, they'll just make things up. With AI, it's very easy to create fake videos, fake text messages, and anything can be created. So it's really easy at this point to try to produce some kind of false evidence. The next step is to disseminate the information. So in a workplace or a family unit, it's relatively easy. It's hand to hand or email to email. If it's a larger scale smear campaign, most likely it's going to be a social media platform like X, Facebook is used a lot. TikTok, YouTube, whatever. The intent with using social media is to amplify the message so that way the energy reverberates, right? The energy grows, more and more people hear it. And once you hear something, most likely you're going to believe it if you hear it repeatedly. That's how we condition our brains. Now, the intent of the smear campaign is to provoke, do you hear the crows? Is to provoke an emotional, I know, honey, I know. Is to provoke an emotional response from the target to validate whatever claims the offender has created or manipulated to state their case, to defame, to dysregulate, and to disparage. And eventually, hopefully, their goal is to discard the target from whatever environment they are in. So the campaign usually unfolds in stages: identification, information seeking, or research of the target, and then identifying people who will disseminate the information. Most oftentimes, this is the most hurtful part for a target. If there are identified people actually disseminating the information, usually it's the people chosen to disseminate the information are going to be extremely hurtful to the target. It's usually people who have some sort of history or relationship with the target in some way. This could be family, friends, lovers, teachers, things like this, students, coworkers. But it's usually the people who that person would look up to, respect, or have some other kind of bond with. So it's especially hurtful. They will also identify people who are more likely to say yes to being persuaded by finances. So the whole goal here is to undermine the reputation and the credibility of the target in whatever situation. This can happen in a number of different cases and for a number of different reasons. It could also be because they want to take something from that target. But we're going to leave that there. How do you handle a smear campaign? Once you realize that there's this false narrative that's being built around you, it's very difficult because number one, no one is likely going to come to you, right? You're going to discover this information. You're going to hear the whispers. Now, because manipulation is the key, whoever the offender is likely manipulated the target and then manipulated the people surrounding the target to set up this smear campaign. So because manipulation is such a key aspect of a smear campaign, the first rule is let it happen. Don't fight it. Don't engage it. Don't retaliate. Not at first anyway. You have to let it happen. You have to see the information coming out. You have to understand whether, there's actual factual information that's there, that's valid, that maybe you should address, right? But if not, if it's skewed information or completely falsified and fabricated information, you absolutely should not engage with that at all. What you want to do is just watch and take notes. You want to take notes of who's talking, right? You want to see who's talking and what they're saying. You want to identify people who you have had connections or relationships with in the past, who is coming to you, right? Who is spreading the information and who is bringing you information. Most of the time, no one will ask you a question. Most of the time, the target is never questioned by anyone, regardless of how close these other people were to them in their personal relationships or professional relationships. The target is almost never asked, never approached by flying monkeys or others who are being used to disseminate this information. Again, that's another hurtful part of the smear campaign, which is intentional to trigger a response from the target, because they do have some kind of prior history with these people. But don't engage, don't retaliate, not at first, okay? You want to pay attention to who is communicating the information if you have access to that. Like if it's on a social media platform, take notes. Who is saying what? Keep notes of that. You want to know who is also maybe stepping in and questioning, like maybe giving a devil's advocate kind of situation. Well, we don't know that, blah, blah, blah. You want to take note of those people as well, because these are people who are using discernment. These are people who are using their logic. They're not just buying into whatever is being fed to them. They're thinking, right? You want to keep that in mind for the future. The most hurtful person that you want to keep an eye on are the people who will disseminate information, whether it's the original dissemination source or they are prolonging the conversation, repeating the information consistently, and then seeing the error of their ways, or perhaps then they switch, right? They will appear friendly or something like this and then turn their back again. That's the person you have to keep your eye on the most. Keep it noted. Don't retaliate. Don't engage anything. And you have to stay calm, right? The next part is you have to pick your battles, right? So you can't just go fighting everything. You want to maintain your integrity. You want to address things not immediately, right? You always want to sit with the information you're receiving, see how things are playing out. And then if there's something that is factually incorrect, that is a direct attack on your character or your integrity, and you want to defend that from your heart, you can do so. But it must be measured. It must not be emotional in the sense of like attacking someone else when it comes to you, okay? That's very important, because what's going to happen is they're going to blame shift and they're going to turn this around on you. And if there's any kind of emotions, any kind of curse words used, you're going to be called mentally unstable, unbalanced, all these different terms that people can use to degrade your mental stability, your ability to discern a situation, perhaps like your knowledge of a specific subject, your educational level, like, or anything. Like, it's going to be used to defame or discredit you in some way. So you're kind of, even when you are defending your integrity or stating, I like to use the word stating, even when you're making a statement about a specific situation regarding your integrity, character, or you're correcting these specifics of a particular situation, it doesn't matter that you're right. It doesn't matter how calm you are. You most likely will be gaslit, or it will be redirected, and it's just it's going to be used against you in some way. So just know that before you take any action. The next thing is you want to be careful of who you speak to, like how much you engage in that environment. If it's a workplace, or a family system, you want a gray rock, right? If it's a social media platform, you don't want to check that media platform every single day. The less you hear it, the less it works on you. Remember, the ultimate goal is to evoke a reaction, an emotional reaction out of you, based on lies, on falsities. So because of that, you have to be careful not to engage in that information, especially if now you're feeling hurt, you're feeling betrayed by certain people who didn't ask you information, and all of these things are like, even if you never heard the information too. So that's the other thing, is like you have to be very careful, because a lot of these things can just be complete creations, right? That started with two people like hanging out in a bar, and then all of a sudden these things blow up, right? But no one has come to you. If no one has come to you, you do not address it. If people are going to find out the truth, they're going to find out that truth on their own. Okay? What you need to also do is look for support outside of that system, outside of that environment, outside of that network. Friends from other circles. You're going to want to look for family members who haven't been approached by the offender. You want to confirm that they haven't been approached, and have they? Did they disregard? Did they reject? How did the offender react to that? Because you have to keep in mind, the offender will most likely then also include them in a campaign at some point, or in the campaign at some point. This is often why very few people will speak up publicly during a real smear campaign, because they are afraid. They're afraid to speak the truth because they don't want to be targeted as well. It's bad enough watching somebody else go through it. They already have guilt for either going along with it without being bribed, or actually taking money and participating in this. This is amplified even more if these people are religious or spiritual. The costs are quite high for their participation in this. Regardless of like what they understand spiritually or not, if they go public in correcting a lot of the information, or standing up or defending the target, they're just going to become targets as well. You want to focus on your self-care as well. So you have to go back to the practices that nurture you. This could be exercising, making sure that you're taking in plenty of fluids, changing your eating, make sure you're eating more healthy. You want to make sure that anything else that like helps you center, helps you ground, helps you come back to yourself, you want to do that. Trauma release exercises are really helpful in this time. They always are. Any kind of somatic type of exercises where you can release the trauma that has been built up. Usually for women, it's in our hips and in that area. Anything that you could do to move that part of your body. I would also highly recommend, under the guidance of, a doctor or other medical professional, please ask them first, of course, is the exercise called tremoring. Now, I would only do this if you have already worked on some trauma previously. If you've already healed and these are wounds that are being reopened, it may or may not be the best thing for you. The best time to start tremoring is when everything is calm, right? When you're moderate, everything's a stasis. It's the act of physically exhausting your muscles to the point of exhaustion, and you're shaking. And it's a huge full body release of energy from your body. It's extremely healing. It's very helpful and highly effective, at least for me. So I would recommend that to anybody. If you're in a calm state, if you're not being triggered and provoked. So if you do that before the smear campaign begins, not that you'll know when it starts, but if you start that beforehand, then you can always go to that. But just be mindful of your mind state, because it might also bring up other things. But again, please use your discernment. And if you have any questions, definitely before you do it, ask a medical professional. You also want to be careful of who you give access to, right? Who is contacting you now? Is anybody not bringing up what's happening, but they're reaching out to you to say hi? You want to limit the information you give out. You want to only speak with people, whether it's about this or anything else in your life, with people who you trust. If you care about the information getting out. Now, if you have an online platform, again, you need to protect yourself there. If the attacks are coming in primarily through social media, that's the tool that you use to actually assert your independence and sovereignty from the situation. But if it's a family situation or workplace situation, the likelihood of social media actually being effective in the immediacy of the event is unlikely, right? So you want to pull yourself back, protect everything. So if that's Facebook, you want to make that private, protect your posts, Instagram, TikTok, whatever anybody else has. If you have a YouTube channel, you want to be careful about what you do there. All the information that was already available on your platform, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, what have you, they already have it. They've probably been gathering information for years. The last thing is legal advice. You want to contact a lawyer if you feel like you need to. If there's public defamation, if there's a doxing, slandering, you want to seek guidance of legal counsel. At least just to start, get them acquainted with you, with your situation. You may also want to involve law enforcement, private investigators. We'll see, right? So all of this, it depends on the scale, but you want to protect yourself. Now, finances could be an issue, but there's a lot of people who do work pro bono. So ask. You never know. Honestly, you never know. If you're the target of a smear campaign, it's because there's something you know or have that someone or lots of other people want. Remember that. You hold power in this situation. You are what they want. You have the information. You have some piece of gold that they are very threatened by. You're the one who holds the power, which is why legal counsel. You want to contact the police, perhaps, if you've been getting harassing messages and things like that. I mean, honestly, when the smear campaign begins, you might even get unknown phone calls at all times of the day and night from unknown numbers or different numbers consistently. This is all done to trigger you. So just stay calm, but keep records of all of that too. Give it to your lawyer, give it to your attorney, give it to the police department. If you have a detective that is working with you, give it directly to them. Let them know what's going on. This is what's happening. So that way, God forbid anything happens, there's paperwork, there's a paper trail there. There you go. If something happens with your career and they are preventing you from taking some sort of position, you have your attorney who has all of the information there, and why you might be able to take action in the future against the people who were behind this. Or at least, if you can't get to those people who actually organized it, to the people who disseminated the information. The last thing I just want to reiterate is that this is a temporary situation. It can feel incredibly triggering, and especially if this is being done by people who understand very well psychological manipulation, brain, how to condition people, and there's other tactics and words I can use, but we're not going to go there. These people understand exactly how to get you to believe what they're saying. They know how to get you to believe a lie about yourself. This is self-gaslighting. Do not allow that to happen, okay? Take care of yourself. Take yourself away from the situation. It depends on who you are and what you have going on in life. Make sure you protect yourself from that environment as best you can in Grey Rock, especially if you get triggered just a little bit by someone who you have had some tie with, or if the environment is important to you. Sometimes there's years of buildup to this. You'll put all of that together. You might have other things going on in life. What looks like a small trigger to the rest of the world is actually the confluence of like putting together 3.5 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, of people taking things from you and setting you up. So watch yourself. and take care of yourself, because that one reaction is going to be looked at by a lot of people. If you do choose to say anything, just understand it's going to be turned around on you. You will be gaslit. It will be used against you to say that you're unstable and whatever else. Or to be used, if the purpose of this smear campaign is to prove that you are not reputable or credible, or you shouldn't be sitting in a specific position of power or within a job or a community, they're going to use that. Be ready for that. Again, you're being targeted because you're a threat. A lot of these attacks are built in such a way to trigger past traumas or past hurts. It's also developed and constructed in such a way where it's people who you care about that are doing these things. Just remember, none of this is representative of your value, of your worth. And no one can ever affect in a real way what your future is in life, right? If these people, this family, this workplace, this environment is willing to go to this extent to harm you without even asking you a question, is that even a place, or are those people who you even want to engage with anymore? The answer could fluctuate for many different people, right? You might want to remain in the space, but not engage with those people. You might want to go to a different department. You may want to gray rock, one or two family members and have high boundaries with others. So it's going to depend on your situation. But keep that in mind. Why would I defend myself against people who would believe this about me without asking me a question? Are these people, and is this a place that I should even give my energy to? And the answer here is no. No, probably not. Remember that. Remember, you are targeted because you have power. You have something people want. So much so that they are willing to lie in an organized way to make you look a certain way. It's incredibly powerful. You hold a lot of power, and you've retained that power by not giving it away emotionally. And if you do and you make a mistake, it happens. Back up, let everything play out. Over time, the truth will come out and people will see through the lies. But you're also going to remember who did what. And that can inform your future actions, right? So if you want to share your experience in the comments, please feel free to do so. If you need a prayer, if you're going through this and you just need a prayer, just type like the prayer emojis. I'll go through the comments and I'll pray for you. You don't even have to say what's going on. I understand that, especially right now, I believe that people are going through this a lot, or they're coming out of it because there's something going on in terms of power, and everybody wants power. But just remember, whoever gains power in this way, they will be taken down. Just remember that, okay? And remember, as long as you retain your own power, your self-control, your dignity, your character, your integrity, nobody can take anything away from you, right? The lawyer, the police, the detective. Get it all to them, and then you just wait for it to play out. Comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know what you thought about this video, and God bless.